For 14 straight days, the rain didn't stop, and neither did the secrets it unlocked inside the human mind. Forget warm fires and cozy stories. When the world outside turned to mud, survival wasn't just about staying dry. Here's the real twist. Ancient rainstorms didn't just test our bodies, they rewired our brains in ways we still feel today. But how? And what did ancient people actually do when trapped for days on end? It wasn't just boredom. It was a psychological crucible. And the habits forged there echo into our rainy Mondays and Netflix marathons. Let's crack open the shelter door. First, imagine waking up to rain for the 6th day straight. Your world is shrinking. Food runs low, tempers run high. Every sound is water, dripping, splashing, leaking through the roof. Turns out, ancient humans had a specific word for this mood. Cabin fever is modern, but the feeling is prehistoric. Psychologists call it confined group stress. Trapped with the same faces, the brain gets twitchy, ready for either bonding or brawling. Here's where it gets weird. Some groups actually thrived during endless rain, but only if they cracked an ancient code. The code was ritual. When the outside world turned hostile, ancient minds turned inward, into music, stories, and strange rain dances. Why does this matter? Because ritual is a psychological hack. It takes chaos outside and creates order inside. But not every ritual was harmless. Sometimes the stories got dark, fears amplified, suspicions grew, and scapegoats appeared. Modern psychologists see a pattern. Isolation and uncertainty supercharge both creativity and paranoia. So, what did ancient humans do to keep the peace? They invented the rain game, shared challenges that forced cooperation. Anthropologists have found bone dice and carved tokens in wet climate shelters, evidence that even 10,000 years ago, we gamified the wait. The games weren't just distractions. They trained the brain to tolerate frustration, delay gratification, and read group dynamics. Flip that around. Those who couldn't play along, literally, risked being left out, or worse. Group cohesion was life or death. The rain didn't just test physical shelter. It tested the tribe's entire social immune system. Now, here's where modern life sneaks in. Our brains still treat rainy days as minor emergencies. That's why moods dip and tempers flare when you're trapped inside by a storm. Your mind is running ancient code. But there's a hidden benefit. With nowhere to go, the brain flips to deep work mode. Creativity spikes indoors, just like it did in those old shelters. Studies show people solve more puzzles and invent more stories on rainy days. The ancient brain loves a good limitation. But most people never realize the same storm that makes us restless is the reason we're still here. There's another twist, the invention of comfort food. Archaeologists trace the first rain recipes to these endless wet weeks. Why? When food was scarce and movement impossible, the group pulled calories for slow-cooked meals, boosting morale and trust. Modern comfort food is just a fossil of that ancient ritual. Your rainy day mac and cheese is 10,000 years old. But the real psychological adaptation was even more radical. We learned to make peace with uncertainty itself. That's the secret sauce. Those who couldn't handle not knowing when the rain would end, what tomorrow brought, suffered worst. But those who learned to sit with the unknown, to practice what psychologists now call radical acceptance, actually coped better. It's a survival trait that modern therapy still teaches, and it was forged in the fire of endless storms. But don't mistake ancient patience for passivity. These people were always preparing, always adapting. The rain was a teacher, forcing innovation during the wait. Some of humanity's oldest inventions come from the wettest seasons. Portable food, woven storage, even the first musical instruments. These weren't hobbies. They were survival experiments. It was a race. Invent something new, or risk running out of options before the sky cleared. Now, let's talk stakes. For ancient humans, bad weather wasn't a metaphor. It was an existential threat. But here's the irony. The worst storms built the strongest bonds. Studies show the more time groups spent trapped together, the tighter their alliances. This is why, today, we love to hate the rain. It's an ancient trigger for togetherness, even if it comes with cabin fever. But don't get too romantic. For every peaceful group, there was a meltdown. Ancient shelters were also the birthplace of grudges. Modern research. After just 48 hours of confinement, cooperation drops and arguments spike. Ancient brains, modern problems. But some groups cracked the code with a trick. Structured alone time. Even in tight quarters, people carved out private moments. This wasn't selfish. It was strategic. A few minutes apart kept the peace for hours. Sound familiar? Today's rainy day me time is ancient group therapy, just with better snacks. So, what's the real lesson? Rain wasn't just a pause. It was the world's first psychological boot camp. We're still living out those neural patterns every time the sky turns gray. But here's the last curiosity. When the rain finally stopped, ancient groups didn't just rush outside. They stepped out changed. The ones who survived didn't just endure. They reinvented how humans live together and apart. And the weirdest part? That's still the rain's real legacy. Not misery, but adaptation and invention. So, next time you're stuck inside, staring at the drizzle, remember, you're not just waiting out the storm. You're living out a survival story that made humanity one rainy day at a time. And if you wonder what happened on the sunny days, well, that's a whole different psychological twist. To see how sunlight flipped the script on ancient minds, and why it still makes us restless, ambitious, and just a little bit wild, watch the next episode right here. But let's rewind. What happened when the storm's monotony became a blank canvas? Boredom, it turns out, is a double-edged blade. Left unchecked, boredom breeds mischief. Ancient records, scratched into bone or whispered in legend, are full of pranks pulled to break the silence. One misstep, though, and the prankster risks exile from the group's fragile peace. Yet, those who channeled boredom into art or tool-making found themselves celebrated. Some of the oldest cave paintings, Lascaux, Chauvet, were likely born of rainy day desperation. A hidden consequence. As creativity flourished, so did superstition. The mind, trapped, spins stories to fit the rhythm of the rain, some harmless, some haunting. And sometimes, those stories became law. The rainstorm as punishment, lightning as omen. Modern researchers found that even today, belief in weather-based superstition spikes in populations living with frequent storms. Ancient boredom, then, seeded both our wildest ideas and our deepest anxieties. Let's open another curiosity loop. How did ancient parents keep children sane during endless rain? Turns out, child psychology under stress is a survival pressure cooker. Some of the earliest lullabies, wordless hums, repetitive rhythms, were invented to soothe not just children, but entire shelters. Studies of modern hunter-gatherer children show, when movement is restricted, kids invent complex imaginary worlds. But here's the twist. These worlds often become training grounds for adult skills. The games are crude, but the stakes are real. Practice now, survive later. Miss that window, and the next real crisis becomes twice as dangerous. The takeaway? Rainstorms made childhood both safer, protected indoors, and riskier by amping up every emotional storm. Modern childhood tantrums during rainy days. Just echoes of ancient storms. But there's a final twist. Love under rain. Confined together, ancient couples formed faster and sometimes fractured spectacularly. Storms became the crucible for future families. Research on modern disaster zones shows birth rates spike 9 months after a major storm. Ironically, the rain that threatened survival also forged the next generation. Every family story, every rainy day romance, is a living fossil of those shelter-bound unions. So next time you hear the rain, remember it's not just water. It's the sound of evolution, invention, and the wild machinery of the human heart, grinding through another test.